So I know there have been a few requests for the slides, and which tells me that Sergeant Rainier already started us off on a pretty good note if we're already getting a request for the first slide deck. So thank you very much to Sergeant Rainier. I think he's in 112 right now. So what we're going to do is our event staff is going to talk to the speakers and make sure that they are good with their slides being shared. And all of those presenters, all of those presentations that they're good with having their slides shared, we are going to hang those on Pavilion and email that link out. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is Pavilion? And that is going to segue me into our next presentation, which is going to be a panel discussion on the Pavilion resource led by DINFOS. Now, our two presenters are going to be our DINFOS Provost, Miss Mary O'Shea, and our Mobile Training Team Program Manager, Miss Mel Weatherspoon. Ladies, the floor is yours.
All right. Pavilion, or as we were discussing up here, potentially the Pavilion. We missed an opportunity to have a lion as our mascot, I suppose. How many of you have heard of Pavilion?
Yes.
How many of you are using Pavilion?
Yes.
You're free to go. I'm just kidding. Like you said, I am Mel Weatherspoon. I'm the Mobile Training Team Program Manager, and you might wonder why I'm up here talking about Pavilion. And you'll learn a little bit about that here in a few minutes. But I use Pavilion in collaboration with the mobile training teams, and it is a great marriage, if you will, of expanding DINFOS, what I like to call hashtag beyond the classroom. So today, I know we only have a limited time, and what we're going to do today is I'm going to pretty much pass the torch over to Mary here in a little bit. We're going to go over our slides, and I've already decided you can't have our slides. I'm just kidding. You can definitely have our slides. He already has our slides. And then we're going to do a little demo, especially for those of you who have not seen Pavilion, you've not used Pavilion. We're going to discuss all the features of Pavilion. We're going to talk a little bit about the future of Pavilion, and then we're going to open the floor for questions. So we practice this, so it better be good. It's going to be good, right, Mary?
Practice makes perfect.
We're a panel of two.
We started off with more panel members, but life sometimes takes over your best plans. So,
right. So I want to ask them the question. Does anybody know what the acronym Pavilion stands for? Because you know it's an acronym. We're in the military. Anybody want to give it a shot?
And that's where it falls apart.
That's where you fall apart, right?
You get
Who got public affairs and visual information? Geniuses.
Yep, you got half of it.
Public affairs and visual information learning in an online network. So it's the Pavilion, right? It's a great, we had to have an acronym, but I think it works. I think it works. So basically what it is an extensive knowledge base of DoD, public affairs, and visual information that's accessible, searchable, and available 24/7. And hopefully we can get on our slides. Can we get on our slides? Slides.
Cue slides, please. There we go.
So we also, you're going to see this slide again, and that's when we're going to start our demo. But there's the QR code. You can either get it from one of the monitors, you can get it up here so you'll be able to follow along. What we ask you is don't start searching it yet until we get to that point. Because I know you're going to be doing this.
Yeah.
Or TikToking.
No TikTok.
No TikToking. So anyway, the cool thing about this is it's mobile friendly. So if you see it pop up on your phone, you'll see it's not an app, but it is mobile friendly, right? And it's available to you 24/7. And we're going to share all of the really cool things that we're doing on Pavilion to help you when you can't get back here to the classroom. And that's who it's for. So I'm going to pass that torch over to Mary, and I will be her trusty sidekick.
Thank you, Mel. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and thank you, those of you who are out there in the virtual world chiming in today. Questions that you have, we'd love to and welcome those from our virtual viewers as well. So a little bit of background on Pavilion. Pavilion as a website, as a platform, is based on an AFPIMS backbone. And to do that, we partnered with our DMA headquarters component, now called web.mil. And so we worked with them and their back-end developers and our front-end developers to create several unique features that never existed before for any AFPIMS website. So of those out here in the audience, how many of you in your DoD capacity use, you have digital estates on using AFPIMS, your web estates? Quite a few. So what you'll see in Pavilion today are some features that didn't exist, and most people in the AFPIMS, those content managers out there, don't even know that they're available yet. Web.mil is moving towards their next generation of cloud-based web service. And Pavilion is going to be piloting its interactivity and its search features with our partner component, Web.mil. So watch for changes for Pavilion to take place in the near future. We'll talk in more detail about that in a little bit. But as we go through this presentation, I'll point out some of those AFPIM features that are unique to Pavilion and available because now the coding exists to accomplish those things for any AFPIMS user. And I hope I'm not misspeaking. I'll make my mea culpas if I need to. All right, so Pavilion launched in April of 2020, and it was built specifically for the fleet and field. It was built for reservists, National Guard, DoD civilians, people who never get to come to Fort Meade and sit in a classroom and have the benefit of one of our expert instructors instructing them. We get our initial entry level folks come through here for their military occupational specialty. We get our officers who get their formal public affairs officer training here. But the vast majority of people, once they leave and graduate these walls, will not get to come back. And so our task has been to bring the best of the schoolhouse to the fleet and field. So the primary users of Pavilion are not inside this building. They're outside this building. In the time that we've launched Pavilion, we started off with about 85, we call them learning assets or resources. We started off with 85, we're now well over 400 resources. And those resources span different types of learning objects. Some are more static, but our goal is to endeavor to make the learning as interactive as possible with skill checks, with knowledge checks, with templates, with all kinds of different things that you can immediately use when you get to your unit out in your theater of operations. So over 400 items and covering 34 different subjects. We'll show you this in a little more detail when we get to the search features of the demo. Next, please. Thank you. We launch 8 different batches of content a year. Just recently, okay, just wanted to talk a little bit about content and what is coming in the near future. I mentioned that there are 34 different subjects falling into 3 different disciplines. In October, we're going to be releasing our batch 25, which is on communication fundamentals. We've already got our subject matter expert team working on that. But we do have 2 more batches coming up, and the batch 26 is on design, and the batch 27 is on the communication research and analysis process. So we need subject matter experts in both of those areas. So if that is your area of expertise, we want to meet you. We would love to connect with you. We've worked really hard to put in place, I mentioned our Pavilion team. It's primarily a contract team of designers, ISDs, experts in multimedia, and they work hard with those experts so that they're doing most of the lift, and the experts are there so we can pick your brain and really get at the root of the knowledge that we're looking for. So we've built our workflows around you understanding that this is a volunteer opportunity. It's a collateral duty. We know you have full-time jobs. And so we have built our process to be very cognizant of your time requirements and limitations. So if you have an interest, we'll talk more about how you can get involved in that way later, but we've built it so that the process is as least painful as possible. Just wanted to share with you how when you all raised your hands, either as somebody who is aware of Pavilion, and for those of you who raised your hand that you actually use Pavilion, that was a heartwarming moment for me, because I think it's your hands are an indicator of what we're seeing in our analytics. We started off in April of 2020 with about 10,000 users. We now consistently get between 125 and 160,000 users every month. That's not bad for a target population of DoD communicators that is about, in total, 15,000 people. So what we do know is that there are more than just DoD communicators interested in this website. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. How many of you in here in this room are not DoD? You're from another sister federal agency. Okay, quite a few. Quite a few. So we're one of the things I am super proud of is when I cast my eye and talk with other communicators and other agencies, 9 times out of 10, there is a DINFOS alumni in their organization with doing some of their communication. So I think that speaks well to how great our graduates are and how skilled they are at their jobs. All right.
So before we turn over to the next slide, I have a question for you social media professionals out there. What is about the average amount of time that people spend on your products? Anybody want to throw a number out there?
Like if you put a video up.
If you put a video up, what's the average amount of time people are spending?
Do they watch the whole thing?
About 3 seconds.
Okay.
3 seconds, okay.
5 minutes.
Ours are instructions.
20 seconds.
Yeah. I tell you, if I see a video's 3 minutes long, I just move on.
What you got over here? 7 minutes? 7 seconds. Okay.
7 seconds.
That's about my attention span.
But that's a goldfish.
See that?
I do 2 minutes, watch it load. If it doesn't load after I see it, I go on.
All right, there you go. So on this next slide, you're going to see some of the top performers on our on Pavilion and see look at these averages. It's incredible.
So these are the top 10 resources that people have used in the last 6 months. And this was as of, I think it was as of May, if I remember right, yes. So on the far right, you'll see the average time spent on page. DINFOS was built, its whole content strategy, its initial concept content strategy has always been about snackable, micro, modular, just-in-time training. If you're out in the field doing your full-time job and you have an incident and you need something, you're not going to take a knee to train. You need what you need and you need to get back to what's going on. And so it was built with that, with intention. So what you'll see for these average times is they range at the top end about 5 or 6 minutes and at the low end about 2 minutes. Most of those lower end ones, you'll notice, are templated. It means people are going to them and they're downloading them. All of our templates are built so that they can be edited. We know it's a template. We know it's not going to fit everybody perfectly. It's a starting point from which you can diverge. And you can customize them yourself then for the unit that you're in. And so what we see here is that the users are engaging with our content like we intended it to be engaged with. At least that's the inference that we're making. All right.
Ready for a take a ride?
All right.
So we're going to take a ride. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to direct this drive.
Mel is going to drive. She's a great driver. And we're going now. If you wanted to use that QR code, or if you wanted to go to the pavilion.dinfos.mil, you can get to the landing page of the Pavilion website. And we will come back to this landing page a little bit later, but one of the unique features, I mentioned the customized features for an AFPIMS website, is this search. We call it a faceted search, and it's because of all the filters that are built into it. You'll notice a very clean query bar at the top. It's static, it stays put, it doesn't move. It's always there on any page you go to on this website. It's bolted down. So we're at a social media event, so Mel is going to type in her query, social media. Immediately you see it starts to recommend objects that are in Pavilion that you could choose. But let's say you want to see all the subjects on social media, because this is really just, you know, an initial sampling. So what you'll do is you'll hit that, magnifying glass, and it will load the results page. What you will see is there are over 300 social media learning assets in Pavilion now, and we add more every single batch release. Every single batch release. So I'm going to show you some of the features of the results page, because the faceted search is unique to Pavilion. It's not something that AppPIMS was originally designed to provide. On the left, you'll notice that there are the filters. And you'll see how there are different ways that you can, and it just depends on how your brain works and how you organize information in your own way. So you can look at it by discipline. If you are a VI person, you could choose the VI discipline. If you are out there at an AFN, you could choose broadcasting. Or if you're working in a communication strategy position, you could choose the PA one. We've also got it broken down by our 3 different resource types. The learning ones, which are a little less interactive, the practice ones, which are interactive and provide some self-check, and then those reference ones that include the templates, the checklist, and policies. But the last one is one that we're going to show you today in our demo. So Mel is going to go to one of our collections. So the collection is the last one. And she's going to go back up to the top and hit apply. Make sure I'm moving along with her. And she's going to, it's going to show you all the collections that we have. So, so Mel, will you scroll down for the different collections? These are how many social media collections we have. We have other collections. So Mel, if you will select the 101, Social Media Evaluation 101. So what you will get is a brief description of what is in that collection. It tells you that there's 8 items, 8 learning resources or assets in that collection. And then as you scroll down, you'll see there is a card available for each one of those assets. As you look at a card, it'll tell you some information right off the hand that you'll want to know. It'll tell you what type of learning object it is. This one happens to be an article. It says article. It tells you about how long it will take for the average person to make their way through that article and read it. You'll also notice there's an icon, a yellow round icon at the top. Each of those icons is matched to a different type of learning resource. So this one happens to be for article. If we scroll to the right, we'll see that the other one, which is slightly different, has a same color, same shape, but a different pattern on it. It's a how-to, step by step, which is why you get that workflow. And then as you scroll down to the bottom of that collection, all 8 items in that collection, you'll see that there are also 2 templates that are available to download within that collection. A collection is something that a unit can use to train their people quickly and efficiently without them having to do a lot of digging and snooping around Pavilion. We want you to look around and see how much, get as much information out of there as you can, but if you don't have time for that, this is a good starting place. Think of it as your foot in the door. All right, so we're going to go back to the landing page because there's some very good features on the landing page that'll also help you navigate Pavilion. So to get back to the landing page, it's super easy. I said that top bar is always there. All you have to do to get back to the beginning is hit that Pavilion icon. It'll take you back to the landing page. As you scroll down just a little bit, the very first thing you'll see at the top is a list of all the different types of resources. You see 5 of them there. There are a great many more than that. I believe it's 11. I believe it's 11 different types of resources. As you go down further, you'll see that there's references, there's learning objects, and there's practice objects. Again, those different levels of engagement and interactivity. And then as you scroll down, you'll see that it's broken up by subject. And in blue, you'll see explore all subjects. And if we click on explore all subjects, you'll see an alphabetical listing, if you could scroll down, Mel, please, of all 34 subjects. We did not start off Pavilion with 34 subjects. We started off lower than that, probably 28 is, I think, what I remember. But we're consistently reviewing and seeing if those subjects need to change. We anticipate with all the new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, that we'll probably be adding more subject areas than just the ones you see here. And to the right, it tells you how many objects there are and which different types of learning they are. So if you want them to have more interactive learning, you would pick practice. If you want them to learn the policy and regulation, you would pick reference. Okay? If you could go back, Mel. And then you can explore by discipline. I mentioned the three, VI, PA, broadcast. Or you can explore by our spotlight. In our spotlight, we use to highlight some of the new releases that we just posted. What we're finding, oddly, we thought that new content would cause a spike and it would shake up the top 10. Turns out that our top 10 is pretty static, at least right now, which means they're perennial and there's a great deal of need around those. But we use the resource spotlight. So if you ever want to know what's new on Pavilion, this is the place that you want to go, is the resource spotlight. And then the last place on the landing page that I would like to show you is this at the very bottom, the need more support, contact us. There are lots of reasons why any of you may want to contact the Pavilion team. And I'm hoping that today's presentation encourages you to do that. So first of all, there are always new things out there that we are looking for that we don't have on Pavilion. So you may have a question and you've looked at Pavilion and you don't find it. Can you help me find it? Maybe our meta tagging is off. Maybe we need to use some different types of meta tagging. Maybe it's there and you just can't find it. We can point you toward it. Maybe you don't find it, but it needs to be developed. And we want to know that too. We want to know what new things need to be developed. And so this ask a question, the Pavilion team will respond to you within 24 hours business day. So if you contact us on a Friday at 5, you're out of luck. But we'll get with you on Monday. So ask a question is one way you can get a hold of us. Get involved. So this, when you pick get involved, this is really volunteering. And there's a volunteer form. You tell us a little bit about your background, your experience. One of the things that we, especially for our military members and our civilian members who, in the DoD, we want to make sure, one, that you understand what you're signing on for. So we do a lot of information giving at the front end of this volunteer process because we want you to be successful. We want you to stay with us till that batch is published. So we're going to do that by making sure you have all the information you need to make an informed decision. The next thing is we want to make sure that your supervisor is supportive of this and that they know and understand how forward-leaning you are in helping your entire community in doing this collateral duty. And then the last thing we do is we inform the proponency offices. DINFOS responds, our client are the service public affairs proponents, your general officers. And we want them to know who in their community is serving this important and valuable asset. So we make sure that they also are informed about who within their Department of the Army or Department of the Navy are serving. And they are interested because they want a voice. They want to make sure if we're producing something that there's a Navy voice, an Air Force voice, a Marine Corps voice, a Coast Guard voice. They want to make sure that they're seeing themselves in those products. And then the last way you could reach out to us is with resources. DINFOS does not have a market cornered on good ideas. As an educator for over 30 years, I can tell you, instructors and trainers, we beg, borrow, steal for things that work, that things that we don't have to take time to create, that things that have been field tested. So if your shop has something along the lines of what we've shown you here today, we want to know about it. We'd love to see it. We'll give you credit for it. Please share your resources that you use and that help your teams. Share it with Pavilion so that we can share it more broadly with the entire DoD community. All right, and then the very last thing, and then I'm going to shut up and let Mel talk. You'll see at the bottom of the page a way to get more training. I mentioned the podcast, I mentioned DINFOS Live, but the other way to get more training, if you can't make it to the schoolhouse, is to bring the schoolhouse to you and your teams. We could do that through an MTT. So Mel's going to switch over here, and she's going to talk a little bit about our MTT program.
All right, is my mic still on?
Yep.
So I could talk all day about mobile training because it's super cool. But I'm going to be in room 112 at lunch today and tomorrow if you're interested to talk more about mobile training on how I can support your organization through mobile training. But I will tell you, as it relates to Pavilion, I use Pavilion in my mobile trainings. I use it as read-aheads for units I'm supporting in a mobile training. I use it when I do a lesson. I typically attach some sort of Pavilion object where you can go and learn more. DINFOS Live, when we're discussing a topic, we add Pavilion objects to that topic so you can expand that. So that's how I use it with that. Also, if my schedule doesn't line up with your schedule for training, I will work with you to help build a little curriculum so you can do that. The other way, that I think is really important is, say you put together one of those, you look at one of those collections and you have all of your team do all of those collections, but you just want to talk to an instructor. We can do that too. You go and do the training on Pavilion, and then we set up a brown bag or a 1-hour session where we pipe in an instructor so you can ask questions and learn more. 'Cause sometimes, I know me, if I'm out there, I don't stay focused when I'm surfing, and I want to talk to somebody if I have a question. You can use the Ask the Question if you prefer, or you can get a hold of me and we'll do a brown bag to further that training through the mobile training team. So again, I'll be in 112 right after this and then tomorrow. But Mary's got one more slide.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you.
Slide over here.
Thank you. I talked earlier about the initial operating concept and our content strategy. All things technologically must change, and we are as well. So we are, rethinking our content strategy and our approach for Pavilion. I mentioned our partnership with Web.mil, but one of the things that has changed in the years since Pavilion launched is that the information environment can be a very sensitive space. And tactically, there are issues and that require some sensitive conversations to happen. So this forward-facing, publicly available content that we scrutinize to make sure that it's not CUI, it's not confidential, it's not PII, it's not an OPSEC issue. We take those efforts, but there are still great ideas that we can't develop because it's publicly facing. And so we're going to work to put some of our content behind a firewall, which means you're going to need a CAC. I don't know how many of you have noticed, but in the last year, the Joint Chiefs have been quietly moving their new Joint Pub Doctrine updates on the MilConnect. How many of you have noticed that? that they're disappearing off the Joint Chiefs page. Well, that affected Pavilion because we were using them as that third-party provider, trusted source. And so we've had to change our approach for how we do this, because if the Joint Chiefs make the decision to take something out of the public space, we're going to respect that, and we're not going to put it out there. So, so that's the kind of mindset that is making this change to move certain things beyond the firewall. Things like how do we combat and identify mis and disinformation? There are some things out there on Pavilion, but there are some other things that could be developed that we're not going to put in that space. So we want to have more capabilities for those of you who are working in some pretty sensitive operations. One of the other things that our Commandant has identified as one of his priorities, as part of his vision, Colonel Richard McNorton, wants to make more of our DINFOS courses on demand. And to do that, they need to be asynchronous, and they need to be self-paced and self-evaluating. That's not an easy thing to do, because we've got a great team of experts here, and one of the beautiful things about being here in the schoolhouse is you get to interact and talk with them. So in order to make that training as high quality as possible, we've really got to think through the problem set and how we're going to get after it. That's not coming out in FY24. We're working on that, targeting our first kind of pilot for that for FY25. The other thing I mentioned was third-party partnerships. We do them now to a lesser degree, but we really want to ramp up the third-party partnership. Our number one rule is shoestring budget. How can we do more with less? So there already exists out in that public space excellent production value training. If you think of Nikon, Canon, there are some great training that already exists out there. Our team with the subject matter experts curate, review, evaluate before it makes its way onto Pavilion. One thing I want to make everyone aware of is right now DAU has an omnibus contract with LinkedIn that provides every person in the DoD with a CAC access to LinkedIn training. I don't know how many of you knew that already. Not very many. You need to go back and tell your entire team. If you're in the DoD, you need to let them know to go to DAU and register and get access to LinkedIn training, because they have Adobe, they have everything from Excel to Microsoft, they have soft business skills, and they have everything from typography to graphics. It's already out there and developed. So to the extent that we can partner with LinkedIn Learning and DAU and create pathways, which is basically a supervisor going in, establishing the learning within LinkedIn, or in combination LinkedIn and Pavilion, to get after their training needs. That's something that we're looking at how that would work as a business model. Right now, there are several of our clients who are going through either proponency merges or or they've done recent merges within their occupational specialties, and they've got legacy people who now may have been a videographer and are expected to be a photographer. Well, how do they close that gap? Pavilion, LinkedIn Learning. Coming back to the school isn't always the most efficient answer for the service, to send however many people of that color and stripe back to the schoolhouse. So, they've got to find other ways. And then finally, these ideas represent ideas that were brought to us by people out in the fleet and field. They're not my idea, they're not Mel's idea. They came from you. And so if you've got the next big idea that you think Pavilion should look at for its future operating concept, I would love to hear it. So use that bottom, contact us, those methods to get in touch. But I've also listed our Pavilion manager, who I'd like to just introduce and wave to. Miss Andrea Batz-Latson is out there. She's been herding the dogs.
I would have known she was in the building. Now I'm really nervous.
Yeah, that she's Happy Batz-Latson. And then my contact is up here as well. So feel free to use those, but the easiest way for you to remember, doesn't require a business card, just reach out to that Pavilion team. All right.
Okay, here we go. The floor's yours. You can ask us as many questions as you can in 10 seconds. Just kidding. You have
10 seconds.
Who's first?
Awesome.
Let's be a panel.
I'll just remind everyone to please just make sure, you hit that switch, turn the microphone on, and then if you could just turn it off when you're done, appreciate that.
Sure, thank you. Kim Danick, DINFOS trained killer from way back, Fort Ben Harrison.
Oh,
Everybody?
Fort Ben.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now I am with another federal agency, the Department of Health and Human Services. I part of the Federal Communicators Network, which is through digital.gov, so you can find a like-minded group of individuals there as well. And I'm constantly pushing them to DINFOS and to Pavilion because I know it's here and I've used it. Just recently, shameless plug and thank you, I had to write some talking points for submissions for disaster human services because that's part of what the office that I'm in does. So we're just going to Hawaii here over the weekend, my bosses. So I had to write up some talking points for them, and they like to see things hard and fast. So if I can give them background or I can point them to a site where I can say, this is what the Defense Information School says is a good thing to use, or a template that helps them accept what I'm trying to tell them, because they're not communicators. So thank you for that. Couple of questions. One, DAU. I asked a couple of people, and we don't know what DAU is either.
Defense Acquisition University.
Perfect, thank you. Second, when I was on Pavilion, I was trying to look up some of the talking points and briefing card material, and I ran into a web page that was for AFPIMS. Are we not allowed without a CAC card, but with a PIV card, a personal identification, personal identification verification card? We have those, we have to use those, but whatever that portal, I can't get on AFPIMS. So is that something that we cannot do? And if not, can some of that stuff be listed on MaxGov? Because MaxGov is the executive level portal that everybody with a CAC or PIV card should be able to get into. NARA. So NARA is the archive site where we have to archive records. If they can be on it, why couldn't some of this be on it? Thank you, I'm done.
So in regard, thank you. You said it was Kim?
Kim,
Thank you, Kim. I love your max.gov idea. I will file that under third-party partner, and we have a product owner meeting every month where we work suggestions and put those into research mode. So we'll have to put that into our research batch.
That's one of those really good things if you went to ask a question. If you have issues like that, pop it in to ask the question, and that team will at least get back to you with an answer and conversation.
In regard to the PIV, the answer is probably not, but the real experts on AFPIMS are the web.mil people. So we'll take that, and I'm looking at Andrea back there in the back. We'll take that one for action as well in terms of bringing it to our web.mil team and asking that question and seeing. It would help us to know if we knew the exact asset. So if you could use that feedback form and tell us which asset it is that you're trying to reach that you cannot, that will be a good starting point for our conversation. All right, thank you, Kim.
Who's next?
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, just turn it on. Hopefully it'll work.
If
Yeah.
Kim didn't break it.
Did it go? Okay.
Yeah.
Josh Heath, I'm from FEMA. Curious about the simulations that you've got on the site. How have they been doing? I see you only have 2. Are they a new resource, or have they not been successful?
They are the hardest and most time-consuming resource to build. And it's one of the things that we would like to do more with. And as AR, VR technologies come about, our intent is to get after that. What I will tell you is the first few years of populating Pavilion, it was all about having enough to get people coming back to it. Now that we've got a good base laid, now we can turn our attention to, because when we do a batch, we could get a bunch of smaller things, or we could get one big thing. And so that's the prioritization we have to do with the limited team that we have to do it. The other thing that we're working really hard in canvassing for, so when I hear stories like Kim's and the disaster response that her agency is a part of, FEMA's another good example. If you are using Pavilion, if it is value added to your organization, help me sell it to OSD, help me sell it to our headquarters, help me fund this so that it can do more for you. So telling us what you need is part of it, but helping spread the word about what your operations look like before and after Pavilion, to show its value and its worth is incredible for us here at the schoolhouse.
Okay.
Thank you, Josh.
Hi, my name is Marion with the Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies. As much as when I hire new people, I'm always asking for DINFOS grads. I don't always get them, but a lot of times I'll get people who are experts in their field. It's their first time with government experience, working for the government. Do you have anything on Pavilion like a template for an individual development plan for experts, but here's what you need to know as a DoD photographer or public affairs specialist?
So just recently, this week, in fact, I got a question from somebody about, do we have Upar Training, which is Unit Public Affairs Representative. These are people who might be a pilot, or they might be a manager, or they might do logistics, but they're expected to speak on behalf of their agency as a PAO. And it kind of falls into that same category. Currently, no, but when I was talking about those developmental training paths using LinkedIn and partnering with DAU, that is exactly what we had in mind. One of the things that Army Public Affairs Center, which is also, anybody from APAC here today by chance? No APAC partners? Woo! So Army Public Affairs is right here on post. They themselves began their efforts at trying to update a virtual UPAR program. That is often one of the easiest ways to get started if you're not familiar with being a government PAO. Government public affairs is very different from industry public affairs. There are some things they have in common, but our rationale and our return on investments are quite different. So we're working with them to, as they finish it, to host it and hang it on Pavilion. They have not been able to finish that program yet, so it's not ready to go. You said Asian, I think I've met before with some of your leadership. You're in Hawaii, right? Okay, yeah. So how many of you are DoD civilians, but you did not come from a military background? Wow, right. So our services numbers have been, their requests for seats here in the schoolhouse have been ticking up. The first thing I would say is getting a seat in the schoolhouse is possible for you. If you are a DoD civilian, you could be put on a wait list to get a seat in the course. We do prioritize military. They are our primary audience for residential training here in the building. But Mel mentioned her MTT program, so that's another good starting place. The other thing, it's not part of my presentation, but we do, for our DoD agencies out there, we will release specific content that we have. We don't post it publicly, but we will share with you our content on specific subject areas. We're not gonna give you large caches of those things, but if you have something very specific that you want your team to learn, you just need to reach out to that link, and if you get with me afterward, I'll show you where you can find it.
If you come see me over there in 112, we'll talk.
And I will be in 112 after as well. Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Lauren Patton. I'm from Pearl Harbor Naval Shipyard, and I'm a social media manager. I do a lot of graphics works for social media, and I'm having to use other third-party sites for my designs, such as like Canva and such. Coming also from having worked with the Army as well, some branches have brand kits and others don't. So where I'm lacking content and content making abilities is any kind of military related assets. So if I want to make a graphic design and I want a submarine, it's very difficult for me to find that type of content. So I've used, say, like Canva, and then there might be a submarine that is from a different country, and so that submarine has a sail in a different place than an American submarine. Is there ever like thought of putting these digital assets out there for us social media managers to be able to get military specific content that we can add into our social media graphics, whether that's for on Pavilion, public side, back end, or just the DINFOS school in general? Where can we get these military assets if we aren't graphic designers?
So my first thought, and I don't know, I know we have Captain Morris, who's one of our experts, faculty members here in the building. The Defense Media Activity, which is our headquarters, one of their components is DIVIDS. I can't remember right off the top of my head what it stands for. DIVIDSHub.net.
There's not there.
Well, and it depends on whether or not it's releasable, because submarines might be a little bit sensitive. And so it might be difficult to get those. And we would not be able to release it to you either. If that's the case. Any other ideas? I'm going to look to our military folks out here, because she's looking specifically for military resources.
It doesn't have to be like a submarine or something. I'm just looking for like a sailor in uniform, or some of like our military ranks or hats and stuff like that. Because, you know, the chief results just came out this week, and I'm like, what is an official rank that I can use for those chief results? I don't know where to get these items without, you know, worrying about copyright. So.
I think from a DINFOS perspective, what we focus on here is more so using materials for learning and training. So more so the academic side of it. I think more so like the operational side, that's probably your service policy is the best place to start for that. I know that's a little nebulous, but each service has a different policy for how it manages, particularly its VI and its public affairs at large. So I'd recommend starting there. We don't have anything established right now, like a repository here at the schoolhouse, to where we can provide that out to people for them to post on their social media. But at the very least, we have a lot of people here that are connected with the respective services, and we can at least point you to the right point of contact. So if you'd like to come talk after, maybe we can at least help point you into the right direction.
Every service does have, public affairs is attached to the command. So, and there's always a way to get in touch with that shop. So that might be one of the, so if you're looking for a Navy sub, then it would be the Navy PA office.
Are you looking for imagery or like vector and vector graphics? Okay.
Oh, you're looking for graphics. That's.
Yeah, we have those, don't we? The Navy has those.
Okay, I thought looking
on
for
the Navy
images
website.
You could use to graphically illustrate things.
Connect, very well.
All right.
This is Suzette from Chinfo.
Oh, there you go. Hi, Suzette. All right. Yeah, come on up.
Go Navy. Just kidding.
Hi, Sergeant Major Jeremy Bunkley, U.S. RSEM Public Affairs. You mentioned there's a lot of great updates that you're putting out on Pavilion and seeing how you've grown over the years. And maybe I just speak for myself, but haven't seen a push of updates. So just a suggestion, perhaps, and I'm not saying I know you have many services to communicate with, but whether it's a posting or an informational push to the service to say, look at all of these great resources, and it could be out there, and maybe I'm not on the distro list, but look at all these great resources we just published on Pavilion. I think that would be hugely beneficial, specifically from a senior leader perspective. sharing with our subordinate public affairs elements, because you can't have all public affairs and VI on one email blast, or something where we can grab that information would definitely be helpful. And again, maybe it's already done, but just a suggestion.
We try. Let me tell you where we do it, where we are, and if you have ideas about where we could go, I'm all ears.
Great.
So DINFOS has a presence on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, and we publish every time we have a release. We put that information out in those 3 channels. We also have a Pavilion link on our webpage itself. Of course, that's a little more push, you're pulling rather than us pushing the information out. We communicate that with our proponency offices to push out, because they are the ones who are in contact with their entire force within that community. And we also work with our user planning group, which I think we failed to mention.
We did.
Our user planning group meets twice a year. They're a steering committee, and they work, they put out their tentacles and put their ear to the ground to listen to buffalo rumblings, to hear what's needed, and they bring it to us via that route. And we use them to also push information out at their level. I will tell you, you saw that graph. It was pretty flatlined for a while. And we were having trouble finding places where we could reach people. We started being everywhere at once, and that was not very effective. For example, we joined the Air Force Public Affairs page and the Combat Camera page, and there are well over 20 well-used, just kind of closed communities in Facebook alone. And we were not getting a lot of ground in those. So if you have ideas, I'd love to hear them. And that goes for anyone in this room.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's important for everybody to know. So thank you for letting us know where those will be published.
That's a good question.
Lastly, you had mentioned some of those documents or how-tos kind of going behind the firewall. When do you anticipate that'll take effect? Just for our knowledge, so we can kind of plan to see, to keep a lookout for that.
Our timeline is going to be driven by the pace of our partner, web.mil. And so, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of clarity there myself. We're hoping we'll get some ground on that in FY24, but I think FY25 is probably more likely. We'll see how fast we can move. Sometimes weapon systems are the only things that move fast in government.
Fact.
Chief.
But information can be weaponized.
Just take a second.
test.
Yeah.
All right. To follow up, I think she's talking about vectored images for.
Yeah, I did not get that at first.
Yeah.
No, and even to her point, I just did a quick search on divots for submarine vectored images, and it doesn't show. But I've seen it, at least in the MC's Talk Shop forum, where other people have go MCs, but. We have folders somewhere, just random people have Google Drives of vectored images of ranks and ships, so we can avoid sharing images of Russian jets and ships on our graphics.
Well, you know who I just...
We have a representative from Chinfo. They're gonna connect, because, I mean, I know for the Navy perspective, there are those graphics that are out.
Right, but I think the tough part is maybe getting people in the community to post those in those forums you're talking about for each of our communities, where people can grab those more easily, but obviously...
That's a great suggestion. Something you said just tripped a trigger in my head. Our headquarters, DMA, has production capabilities, and they have graphics teams, and they represent every service. I actually think going straight to those production teams for whatever piece of equipment it is that you're looking for might be the way to do it, because they've already developed 1 million images for those things. And they've got some pretty great graphic designers. Yes, exactly. Exactly, all hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, sir.
Major Black, 88th Public Affairs Office. 2020, Mel and her team, during 6 months into COVID, Mel and her team came in and did an amazing, I think it ended up being about 6 hours, basically all day.
How do we actually
and
translate that
covered
into
everything
things
from
that you can do and
storytelling
see?
to VI.
For the intent,
it was
let's call
absolutely
that,
amazing. We
a
had the
statement of purpose
MCSG
that
commander,
describes a
then
future
Colonel,
instinct. What
now
do we wanna
retired
get
Brigadier
to?
General Pugh
Okay?
was
You're
on.
standing
He was
here.
blown away by it. He didn't even know it was a capability.
You want to get
it helped me
across
get a really good
whatever
eval. Thank you, Mel.
environment you're in. And here's the tools you have to build that bridge. How
Love
are you
top
going to
block
build that bridge and get
evals.
yourself over
Different topic.
Can you have
My
more than one
question
intent?
is, Is there a way?
You can have your operational
Because
intent.
again,
you can
reserve
have
PA
something-
I think is
some intent
significantly
for training,
different, and
some
even here in
intent for your
DINFOS,
family and readiness
as a former
program. You can have
PAQC,
your commander,
it
your
was
senior
seldom
leader
talked
can
about.
have an intent
So
on any number
I think
of things.
right now for us,
What I will
especially being
caution you,
light
though, you
in terms of our
have
PA
to
NCOs,
prioritize.
we
You can't do
need
it. You can do
MTTs
anything,
more
you
than
can't do
ever.
everything. Okay, and time is
What
finite.
determines whether it's
I think all
virtual
of us have probably
or
spent
versus you
multiple
all
hours
actually
after
coming to support
work
us?
at home.
Couple of things
just
that are really
doom
important
scrolling,
on that
trying
one
to
is,
like
number
follow
one,
on
if
like
you
something that's happening on
put
social
me on a
media or
plane, my
something
team
we
on a
posted. What do
plane,
they
or
say
you have to
about
go
it? Do they
somewhere, you
love
have to
me?
pay for it.
They don't.
So your training dollars,
It's
number
okay.
one, are going to dictate.
So we'll talk about this. I've
Whether or not you can get
oversimplified
us
this
in person.
conversation just for purposes
So
of
virtual.
it. We're gonna
I do what I can, right?
And time,
however, if you-
money and time, those are our two.
If you have the money,
be
there
very
are some
concise and
topics
very
that are
direct
just
on what it is
best
that we're
having
trying to
an
achieve.
instructor there.
Find your audience. You
with
gotta
them,
know
a
who it is
camera,
that's
a
gonna
computer
carry you to the
over
promised
their
land.
shoulder,
And then repetitive
really,
engagement.
where they can go out and shoot.
And then repetitive
then create.
engagement.
So
And then
you
deja
have the
vu.
training
No,
dollars.
assess the effect.
I work
So
my schedule and
let's
the
kind of work
availability of
through
the
these,
instructors, as you know.
and I'll use
and
my
we'll
own
make that happen.
experience.
But if you have a need, and we can talk more about this at 112.
My time with
if you have a
Sergeant Major of the Army,
need
Grinston.
for a
Okay.
mission, and all you can do is virtual because
This
you
is
have
my
no
squad.
money, we'll
Sergeant Major of
figure
the
it
Army
out.
came in, they said,
We
you're the new
also,
Sergeant
our
Major of the Army,
instructors
what are
are
you gonna
amazing
do?
because they're all
What's your big
volunteer for
thing?
MTT.
What's your
They change
what's your
their time
vision?
zones to support,
And
as well as work
the previous
weekends.
Sergeant Major of the Army
So
had not in
our
my
number
squad.
one job
These
is
are
to
the
get
things
that
we're
training
not
where
gonna
you
do.
need it, when you need
We're
it,
not going to
and how you need it.
we're not going to degrade
use
each
it.
other.
That's
We're
what
not
it's
going
here
to
for.
harass each other. We're not
But
going
we're glad we can help. I saw your
We're not
name.
going
I'm
to
like,
tear each other
I
down
know
to the
you.
point
great
where
testimonial.
somebody
Thank you.
loses hope and
Okay, we're gonna take
considers
one more
suicide
question.
as
Never
an
gonna let you get a lunch
These are the
unless
things
you
we're
want to
not
come
gonna
talk
do.
to
The
us.
U.S.
at
Inmate
112.
comes in and
Actually,
goes,
it's not a question, but
why
there
don't we
was
focus
a
on the things
request
we are
to,
going to do? What are those
put out
positive aspects
information or
of leadership?
people
The
are
things
missing the
having
information.
pride in your organization.
I just want to
taking
suggest that
ownership
maybe
of
you have
your
some
people.
kind of
You want to say,
subscriber
this is
service.
my squad, and not just that
I know
infantry squad,
big
any group
DoD,
of small people that you work
I
with.
subscribe to
Doesn't have
theirs,
one.
and they have
My favorite
topics. You
squad
might
is
even
my
be able
family.
to just
My
add a
5-year-old daughter
topic for
just started kindergarten.
DINFOS.
And that was important.
You do like
their
a whole
contract.
RSS feed kind of.
Monday
Right,
morning.
but the thing is, you can
I was
send
outside at
out,
the bus
you
stop.
can,
Sunday
you know,
night, we're out
bulletins,
there with
people can sign up for
sidewalk
what they
chalking
want,
up the
whether
bus
it's,
stop
you
so
know,
that when
based
she
upon the
walks in,
different
she has a
disciplines you
positive
have, but I'm
experience.
just
And the
saying
same
it would
thing
be
applies
good
to any
because
organization. How do you
whoever
bring
wants the
people in?
information could sign up for
How
it
do
and it would
you
come straight
take
to their
ownership
I know
inbox.
with
the
AFPIMS, we've been
responsibilities
limited
you've been given.
because
How do you
it's
create an
public
environment where
and
it's a place they
the
want
whole
to be,
government collecting
and then you'll get
information on
the best
people
work out.
is
So for
important.
Sergeant Major of the Army Grinston, this
And so
went
we've got to
through
work through
many
legal.
different
It was one of the
iterations.
reasons
this is
why
what
we
we
didn't
landed
go
on.
that
This
route.
was it.
It was
This
something we had
was-
considered earlier.
This
and
was
we kind of
the
nixed it
gospel.
for
This
our
was the
initial
bookends.
operating
What is this
concept,
is my squad?
but we
It's
could put it
why-
back
why am I doing
on
that? Is that my
the
fault?
page for.
I'll come to 112 because we're on AFPIMS.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I want to talk to you. What was your name? Natalie. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for.
Thanks for having questions.
attention.
That's awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I release you to lunch, I have a couple of announcements. First, ladies, on behalf of Colonel McNorton, I would like to provide you both a command coin. Yep. Navy. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you for
Go Navy.
your wisdom.
Sorry.
Okay, we're now going to move to lunch until 1300. Just a reminder, your lunch options are going to be Mission Barbecue, which is right out here, the Cup Cafe, which is on the second floor, and then our Unit Funds Council, which will be selling food per